Today we are going to revisit the book Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. One of the reasons why I decided to discuss this book, again, I've done a discussion on it before, is based on the last handful of videos in which we've been discussing faith as loyalty to the unseen reality, or experiencing the five-sensory reality from the perspective of what is in harmony and in contribution to the vision. Reality from the accurate perspective that it is true and harmony to your vision. Now, this is easily and automatically done when we are in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So thus we want to understand what it means. We want to get into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And what we want to recognize is how to maintain this feeling of the wish fulfilled so that we can experience more of a lighthearted, flow-based journey to realizing our visions. Now he states, what you feel deeply is far more important than what you are thinking. You may think about doing something for a long time and never do it. But when you feel something deeply, you are spurred to act, and God acts. He who is the cause of all life acts through the sense of feeling. You can think of 1,000 things, yet not be moved to act upon one of them. A deep conviction felt is far more important than anything you could ever think. Now, this brings us a lot of inner peace because we recognize that feeling is an indication of what we are identifying with. And this is something that we want to increase awareness of. So before we get into discussion of, and I put this together here, 6 key insights, sequential style, from the 4 chapters within the book, let's talk a little bit about awareness as well as tie it into what I brought up a few videos ago, which I'll put a link in the description to, 7 ways I align with the feeling, both get into the feeling and maintain the feeling. So awareness is the state of being conscious of something. And when we look at it from another slant, we see awareness is also knowledge or perception of a situation or fact. On one aspect, it is the interpretation. And on the other aspect, it's the awareness of the interpretation. So this process of awareness of interpretation in a way that's accurate to the vision, maintaining a state of mind that's one with the vision, is found by how we feel, because how we feel is what we are identifying with. So we can think many different thoughts. However, what we feel as true, which can be related to faith, which we'll discuss in a moment, is what we are experiencing as the journey and what we are identifying with on the journey to realizing the vision, which includes the different people, environment, circumstance, information, and so forth. All of this is externalized from within, based on what we hold true, based on how we feel, which what he states here, what you feel deeply is far more important than what you are thinking. So what we feel and identify with brings us into certain states of mind or moods, as we've been discussing. So different ways to bring myself back into an ideal mood that's one with the vision: meditation, listening to music, consuming certain information. Now, there's one audiobook that I used to listen to over and over again, and I still do every now and then. It's James Allen's As a Man Thinketh. Now, the reason why I listen to this book again and again, even though it's the same words, is because through the process of experiential learning, and we discussed this in the last video, we begin to understand ourselves and reality more so. We gain a higher degree of awareness and the cause and effect relationship to the world within, outer world effects and inner world cause. As we understand these cause and effect relationships, we find the accurate truth, interpretation, perspectives, beliefs, assumptions that are in harmony with the vision, and we identify with those attributes from the perspective of feeling, the conviction. So, when I go through the journey, and we all go through the journey to realizing our vision, one of the things that we recognize is if we revisit information that we were studying, perhaps at an earlier stage of the journey, we begin to understand it a little bit more so. And this understanding it more so is a result of the internal rising up of awareness that occurs within through the commitment and maintaining the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is part of reality rearranging to reflect the vision. Reality rearranges in how we emotionally integrate, in our behaviors, in how we relate to people, environment, circumstance, and information, and this is an internal harmony. So, meditation, music, information, focusing on the task at hand, conversation, environment, and exercise. This is what I use to bring myself back into the feeling. That's one with the vision. Ideal state of mind. Today we're going to go deeper into conversation in relation to feeling into and living from the wish fulfilled, the unseen reality of your vision, as though the unseen is present fact. So in chapter 1, he says, "The world and all within it is man's conditioned consciousness objectified. Consciousness is the cause as well as the substance of the entire world. So it is to consciousness that we must turn if we would discover the secret of creation." So this is where we let go of the delusions and the inaccurate ways of thinking and go into a deeper level of realization that we make the changes within, and as a result, the external changes. And so we begin to value this world within. And so he states, "The conscious generates ideas and impresses these ideas on the subconscious. The subconscious receives ideas and gives form and expression to them. By this law, first conceiving an idea and then impressing this idea, conceived on the subconscious, all things evolve out of consciousness. And without this sequence, there is not anything made that is made." So let's look at that a little deeper. And we've discussed this further in our conversations regarding Joseph Murphy's work on the power of the subconscious mind. And our goal is to identify with certain kinds of thinking to the point where we assume that way of thinking as fact in our inner world, the unseen reality, via the association of what he refers to as the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Thus, then, what ends up happening is that a person then identifies with this feeling and then begins to live and act from this feeling. And so what we want to do now is be more conscious about this. Be aware as to what we are identifying with. And so one of the easiest ways that he mentions to change the internal interpretations and our relationship to people, environment, circumstance, and information and attributes of the journey on the way to realizing our vision is in chapter number 2, Sleep. He says, "As in heaven, so on earth." Matthew 6:10, Luke 11:2. "As in the subconscious, so on earth." Whatever you have in consciousness as you go to sleep is the measure of your expression in the waking 2/3 of your life on earth. Entire slumber is dominated by his last waking concept of self. It follows, therefore, that he should always assume the feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction before he tires in sleep. So the feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction is related to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So it's essentially what we are thinking and what we are imagining prior to going to sleep. And one of the reasons why we would do this is if an individual has an overly active conscious mind from the perspective of overthinking, over-rationalizing, and over-analyzing, they may have a hard time having an inner dialogue with themselves or a conversation with another person in which it is very suggestive to identify with certain perspectives that will allow them to create the success that they want, because they're operating more from thinking too much. Which is why I recommend maintaining flow and a lightheartedness, because you're more in an alpha state of mind and may slip into alpha theta, and theta referring to state akin to sleep, or borderlining alpha theta, is where we are suggestible because we allow the interpretations to go into our subconscious mind. So, two parts to this that we want to keep into consideration. When we bring ourselves into the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and as mentioned, we're going to focus on conversation throughout the day, which is conversation with others, conversation within yourself, inner dialogue, and you are open and suggestible, not resistant to that conversation, you are automatically allowing that information to stimulate a way of thinking that brings forth this feeling of the wish fulfilled. And if a person has challenge with this, they could work with chapter 3, prayer. So he says, prayer, like sleep, is also an entrance into the subconscious. When you pray, enter into your closet, and when you have shut your door, pray to your Father which is in secret, and your Father which is in secret shall reward you openly. Matthew 6:6. Prayer is an illusion of sleep which diminishes the impression of the outer world and renders the mind more receptive to suggestion from within. So there's the key right there. An overly active and overly stimulated conscious overthinking mind has a harder time letting go of the outer world for sensory input, stimulus, and identifying more so with the creative imagination, the imaginational scene. So it's easier to do this in a state akin to sleep, prior to going to sleep, because we tend to be more in a theta state of mind, in which the conscious mind is not as active. As mentioned, we could do this during the day as well, prior to taking the naps, if we take naps, or even in the morning when we wake up, which is why it's recommended to do your visualization or affirmation and prayers in the morning, before taking naps, or before going to sleep. Because then this information is allowed to go into the subconscious mind without the overly active argumentation of perhaps some egotism-based aspects or other overly critical aspects of the conscious mind, which is not allowing, for whatever the reason may be, the true and accurate interpretations and assumptions to be well received via the subconscious mind and expressed accordingly. A relationship with the subconscious mind. Building a relationship between the conscious and the subconscious via what's being discussed here. Which, as you continue to get better at this and develop this more so, as you begin to understand more so and bring forth a higher degree of awareness onto yourself, knowing when you are most receptive and most stimulated by the information or the inner conversations or conversation with others, and then you know what to do in those very sacred doorways in which the subconscious mind is more receptive. And you understand what information is ideal to identify with to bring you in the feeling of the wish fulfilled as a result of that awareness. So awareness plays an important role, which is why I suggest. Although we can work with this information in state akin to sleep, we can also practice this more so and allow ourselves to slip into theta by being more in an alpha state and a more of a flow state, which allows us to, in waking hours, slip into experiences in which we allow inner dialogues to go in and stimulate. Lightheartedness, this is what it refers to. So he says, prayer is an illusion of sleep which diminishes the impression of the outer world and renders the mind more receptive to suggestion from within. So that's what we want, is to render the mind to be more receptive to suggestion from within. The inner dialogues, the prayers, and the inner conversations that will be ideal to your vision, whatever they may be. He says the mind in prayer is in a state of relaxation, receptivity, akin to the feeling attained just before dropping off to sleep. Prayer is not so much what you ask for as how you prepare for its reception. Whatsoever things ye desire when ye pray, believe that you have reached them, and ye shall have them. Mark 11:24. The only condition required is that you believe that your prayers are already realized. So let's go a little deeper into this. The only condition required is that you believe that your prayers are already realized. This right here happens automatically in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And we can get into the feeling of the wish fulfilled in a state akin to sleep. Right when you wake up, prior to going to sleep, as he suggests here, or before taking a nap. Or as you work with the fluidity of mind, which you've been discussing all throughout our videos, you know how to, as needed, put yourself into a receptive state. In more of a waking day-to-day journey, I'm able to do this with practice while having conversations with people. While listening to, for example, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale, or other kinds of information in which I want to integrate that information more so, where I'm not necessarily going to sleep, but I'm able to tune myself in to more of an allowing, receptive way of being, allowing the conscious mind to be more receptive from the information being consumed. And it's also recommended that you do this with the information that you ideally want to identify with, and such as the power of the subconscious mind, because what we assume to be true via the feeling of the wish fulfilled and unconsciously being faithful to it hardens into fact, as he had stated many times. He says, your prayer must be answered if you assume the feeling that would be yours were you already in possession of your objective. The moment you accept the wish as an accomplished fact, the subconscious mind finds means for its realization. So this is where we say, some way, somehow, the known ways and the unknown ways are stimulated as a result of the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and the subconscious mind allows that expression to happen through you. And that's how we know we are on the journey to realizing of the vision, because you can feel it. You think from the perspectives. The thinking is more accurate, more intuitive, and even related to what we talked about in the last video, thin slicing, where a person may receive some information on the journey to realizing their vision, and they're able to intuitively understand what it means, and they know what to do, what not to do, when to do, how to do. And all of this is facilitated via the intuition or inner dialogue. For me, it's inner voice, because I happen to be very conversational, and that's why I like to work with inner dialogue and even conversations with others that stimulate a way of thinking. And such is the case why I also enjoy listening to As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, because as I continue to listen to it, I find myself more identified with this information, and then what I notice is that reality plays out. People say the same things that are within that information. They affirm what is being said in that information and my inner dialogues in the conversations, and they behave from that perspective. Environment behaves from that perspective. Information presents from that perspective. And I myself identify with the certain capabilities, the behaviors, and the environments and the ways of thinking, beliefs, interpretations, etc., that are in alignment with those perspectives that I'm identifying with as a result of consuming that information, which to me is a form of conversation. Because when I'm listening to an audiobook like As a Man Thinketh, I'm having a conversation. And if I feel resonant with that conversation, I allow myself to be more impressed and stimulated by those thoughts that are being shared, bringing me into a feeling of the wish fulfilled. And this can be done, as mentioned, in more of an awakened state if you have the ability to, and you'll get better at it with practice. That's why I suggest making flow a priority, which is why I'll put another link in the description to my flow series. Recommend watching it, because as you do this, it is easier to release from overthinking and slip more into a receptive way of being in awakened states. And also, you could work with this in state akin to sleep, as he suggests. So let's go deeper into the feeling aspect, and we're tying this into the unseen as present fact, feeling, the association of the unseen reality from the perspective of this five-sensory world rearranging to reflect that unseen reality, and living from that perspective is called faith. So he says, get into the spirit of the state desired by assuming the feeling that would be yours were you already the one you want to be. This is simply imagining, thinking, inner dialoguing, affirming, or praying from the perspective of the feeling of the wish fulfilled, such as, I realize that my confidence level is higher more so today than ever before, as I experience my interactions with people, and they confirm through their conversations, body language, and interactions with me. He says, as you capture the feeling of the state sought, you are relieved of all effort to make it so, for it is already so. So that's the point where we let go and we release, and we call this allowing the subconscious mind to express through you. He says there's a definite feeling associated with every idea in the mind of man. This is where we can allow certain kinds of thinking and interpretations that we will call negative thoughts or something like that without identifying with them, passing in our mind, because we recognize that it's the thoughts that we identify with via the feeling of the wish fulfilled that we'll begin to see more of because of that identification. So this brings forth a higher degree of inner peace, allowing the authenticity to express emotionally, physically, and so forth, and accepting that regardless of the five sensory experiences in relation to even the thinking, emotional integration, behaviors, outer world, people, environment, circumstance, and information, that some way, somehow, what will shine through is the vision that was buried in the subconscious mind via the prayer. He says, as you capture the feeling of the state sought, you are relieved of all effort to make it so, for it is already so. There is a definite feeling associated with every idea in the mind of man. Capture the feeling associated with your realized wish by assuming the feeling that would be yours were you already in possession of the thing you desire, and your wish will objectify itself. So this is where he ties us into faith. And as you've been noticing probably over the last handful of discussions, I've been going deeper into the idea, the concept of faith. We've been looking at it from the perspective of loyalty to the unseen reality, seeing the unseen as present fact, interpreting the five sensory experience from the perspective of the vision, seeing the inner world in contribution and harmony with your outer world, and outer world in contribution and harmony with the inner world, which we can also refer to this as the feeling of the wish fulfilled, heaven on earth. This level and deep level of integration between vision and reality further stimulates the inner voice and intuition guiding you from within each step of the way to the realization of the vision, which is essentially dwelling in and living from the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And then he says faith is a feeling. According to your faith, feeling, be it unto you. And so he says, as a man is, so does he see. To him that hath, it shall be given to him. That hath not, it shall be taken away. Matthew 13:12, 25, 29. That which you feel yourself to be, you are, and you are given that which you are. So assume the feeling that would be yours were you already in possession of your wish, and your wish must be realized. So as we reflect upon this, again, another deeper discussion on Feeling of the Secret by Neville Goddard, which I discussed before, and it's worth revisiting this book again and again as we continue through experiential learning, integrating this information by picking goals, visions, seeing them all the way to completion, and repeating the process again and again and again, going through the spiritual alchemy process, which was discussed in the last video. I'll put a link in the description to that. Let's reflect upon this. So we allow the subconscious mind to express through us after we have assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled, which is a result of stimulating the subconscious mind in more of a state akin to sleep, prior to going to sleep, right when waking up, before taking naps, and also can be done through maintaining a more lighthearted way of being throughout the day. So we are more open and receptive to the inner conversations that are accurate and true to be stimulating the subconscious mind and bringing forth the feeling of the wish fulfilled into a state of mind that's one with the vision, as mentioned and related to the other video that I did. I also work with meditation, music, information. We've been focusing a lot of conversation in this particular video, being very committed to the task at hand, environments, and exercise. These are aspects that bring me into the feeling of the wish fulfilled, allowing me to maintain my flow, stimulating certain ideal inner conversation, which further impresses the subconscious mind as I allow it to do so, via stimulating the feeling of the wish fulfilled and bringing forth those behaviors, attributes, aspects, and changes in known and unknown ways. Because we have to remember that the powers of the subconscious mind are infinite, and although we have known ways of how the subconscious mind works to bring forth our vision, there are also unknown ways that are tapped into as a result of identifying with the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Through the process, we let go of certain kinds of insecure, shame-based interpretations in regards to ourselves, people, environment, circumstance, and information, and allow the authentic expression of that vision to bring forth the ideal ways of thinking, behaviors, and outer world changes. This is all flowing through us, and we allow it to flow through us by ensuring that we maintain this feeling of the wish fulfilled. That's how it becomes easier more so. Does a person have to maintain the feeling of the wish fulfilled all day long? I would say not so. However, we want more of a flow-based, first-class concept of self journey to the destination, as we had learned from Neville Goddard's conversation with his teacher Abdullah. He was going to go to Barbados, and at one point he was going to go to Barbados third class, but Abdullah mentioned to him that he is in Barbados now, seeing the unseen as present fact, interpreting the five sensory experience from the perspective of the vision, faith, loyalty to the unseen reality, not engaging in the arguments of the intellect with Neville or himself, but rather remaining in faith with loyalty to the unseen reality as present fact that Neville is in Barbados now, and he went there first class. Stimulating faith, which he refers to here, faith as feeling, and then Neville ends up going to Barbados first class. So we want the destination, which is representative of Barbados, your vision, and the journey to be more flow-based, which is related to the first-class concept of self, and that is tied into seeing both the journey and the destination as valuable and relatable to each other. And to discuss this further, I recommend watching the video again I released on Thursday of the process that we go through to purify the mind of inaccurate thinking on the journey to realizing the vision and valuing the journey and the destination and seeing them as one. So let's go ahead and conclude this with an affirmation to stimulate this further. We could say, I recognize that I have the ability to bring myself into the feeling of the wish fulfilled on command anytime during the day. And I'm developing this ability more so every day as I continue this journey. Through this process, I increase my awareness on the different thought processes, ways of thinking, inner dialogues that stimulate the feeling of the wish fulfilled and all attributes on the journey in relation to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, thus bringing forth my vision and doing it so from the perspective of the first-class concept of self. As a result, I make this a priority to maintain this flow, way of thinking, to further bring forth hunches, ideas, inspirations, and higher degrees of awareness on situations and facts and interpretations in relation to the five sensory experience: people, environment, circumstance, and information, and related over to my vision automatically and easily so, further encouraging the feeling of the wish fulfilled. I'm able to, as a result, maintain the spirit of the state desired by automatically assuming the feeling that it is mine, which is as a result of what I truly understand, which is creation is complete and the outer world is a reflection of that which I identify with as a result of faith, which is feeling. I recognize that according to my faith, representative feeling, it will be done unto me. Through this process, I continue to maintain and assume the feeling that what I desire is mine, and I'm already in possession of it right now, recognizing that this is the process of realization of my vision, self-realization, and self-actualization. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.